Well, let's talk about that for a second, because in recent conversation with folks not necessarily philosophically aligned with what we're talking about, are of the opinion that if push comes to shove, and government has to take whatever draconian action they seem fit in order to stay in control and maintain this whole law and order facade. Is that all this preparing, is really kind of a waste of time and money. That ultimately you're going to be, scooped up with the rest and put wherever you're told to go, and that's pretty much going to be it.
I think that's paranoia when you come right down to it. There simply is not enough of a military and police presence in our nation to institute anything like martial law nationwide. They would be hard-pressed to institute martial law in just a small region. I mean, look at Hurricane Katrina, for example. You had where were the police? They were out looting. They were looting at Walmart.
Well, there was that.
I don't think we're going to see martial law imposed in the United States, and I don't think logistically it could ever really happen. And for anyone to say, "Oh, I can't prepare because the government is going to come take what I have," is as a defeatist attitude. People just need to be quiet about their preparations, and also they should, show common sense and not put all their eggs in one basket. If you disperse what you have in several caches, wall caches and floor caches or basement caches in your own house, and a well-stocked retreat, and maybe some at grandma's house. Even if there is a situation where looters get part of what you have and you're left with just what you have on your back, you'll at least have something to fall back to.
Right. Well, let's talk about community for a moment, because I know you've got your unlisted address and all. And I admire you and covet you for that. What about community? One of the things that was missing in Katrina, and I have a daughter who lives down there. I know a little bit about it. The being able to fall back on friends and family and neighbors and so on in situations like that. But in a grid collapse or an economic collapse, when things might be a little bit more testy, where do you place the value on neighbors, or when you talk about that bug out area, an alternative residence? What about that?
Well, Brian, I think that community is very important, but people need to pick where they live very carefully. I don't recommend living in a town larger than about a 5,000 population, because over a 5,000 population, you tend to lose the sense of neighborhood and community and what the Germans refer to as Gemeinschaft, okay, that sense of community. It's what the South Africans refer to as a Lager spirit. People need to be able to hunker down together and feel that they are putting up a solid front toward outsiders. It's what psychologists refer to as the we-they paradigm. Mm-hmm. You want to be part of the we and not the they. So I recommend if you're going to move to the country, you need to make a decision whether you're going to live right in a small town or whether you're going to live out in absolute remote country. Because if you're kind of on the edge, you're neither fish nor fowl. You want to be either fully inside of the community and be able to depend on the mutual defense of a community, or you want to be so far out in the boonies that you're essentially hidden, where you're so far off the beaten track that looters would never come your way. But to be right on the outskirts of a small town, I think, would actually be a dangerous thing, because, again, you're neither fish nor fowl.
Yeah. I'm assuming, without probing your privacy, that you've opted for Plan B.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm part. Although we're a pretty tight neighborhood, here in this unnamed western state, a neighbor is considered anyone within about 10 miles. Okay, right. That's the kind of population density we're looking at. There's about 3 people per square mile in the county I live in, and we only have about 15,000 people in the whole county, and the county is about the size of Delaware. So if it gives you a sense of proportion and scale, it's a whole different sense of scale when you're out in the inland Northwest. And I can't even mention what state I live in or what county I live in, but suffice it to say, yes, I opted for a rural retreat, but I'm pretty darn tight with my neighbors, and we have each other's back.
Did that? And again, I'm not trying to infringe on your privacy or security. I'm trying to get a sense of how anyone else may be able to establish something similar. Is the in opting for that? I'm assuming, based on what you said, that there are folks within 10, 15 miles of that. And I'm assuming that you were all of the same mind and the same line of thought. Was that just serendipitous, or did you arrange for that?
Well, no, I think it was more providential, because we actually bought the piece of property before we got to know our neighbors, and it turned out they were all pretty much like-minded. So, as a Christian, I think people ought to approach this first from a position of prayer. And, you want to be in covenant with God and pray for God's providence for His, for His covenant people. And just pray that God puts you in the right place at the right time with the right people. That's my prayer every day, and that's what I often pray with my consulting clients. Mm-hmm. If people do have the chance to move, I think they should strategically move now. If people are self-employed or retirement age or nearing retirement, go ahead and make the move. Get the heck out of the suburbs of the big city now, and buy yourself a nice, self-sufficient piece of property with plentiful water, that's well removed from major cities and way off the beaten track. The phrase that I often use with my consulting clients is, find a place on a side road of a side road. You don't want to be on a highway, certainly, and you don't want to be even on a minor boulevard. You want to be way off on the side road of a side road. So if there is trouble and people do come pouring out of the cities, that golden horde will already be very well attenuated by the time it ever gets out to your county, and by the time it ever gets to your road, they'll probably never get there.
I have a friend of mine
who's a problem with looting where I live. If we have a problem in my county, it's usually more involving the weather or someone hitting a deer or an elk out on the highway. That's the kind of emergencies we tend to have here.
I kind of like that.
Going down and trees going down in a big storm and knocking down power lines or blocking roads. But we more or less have the frontier mentality here, which is we don't call the county and ask for them to clear the fallen trees. We just break out our chainsaws and do it ourselves.
How about it? Yeah. Well, that was my final question. Was save the rest for next time. Is Americans. And America was known, at least in the early days, for its rugged individualism, and that it was given a lot of credit for the country getting off to a great start and getting where it went. But that rugged individualism as a quality seems to have given way to Xbox and cable TV.
We really have become a soft society, but I'll tell you, the rugged individualism is alive and well in the American readout.
Mm-hmm. Well, a quick question on that: is there any concern that the popularity of that concept in that area will become a self-defeating and self-fulfilling prophecy?
At some point, I guess if it's really popular for 40 or 50 years, then we may get overpopulated. But right now, the population density is so low that we could have a population explosion here and it would hardly be noticed. There's just nobody here. I mean, there's probably 20 or 30 deer for every human being in this county, and it's miles and miles and miles to the nearest Walmart. Even we have plenty of elbow room, and plenty of room for like-minded people who want to move here. I'm not worried about that at all.
I got you. I'm trying to compose a list of areas that don't have zip codes to see if I can.
Well, not that remote, but there actually are quite a few counties in the United States that are still officially classified as frontier counties, and I happen to live in one. So most people, especially in the eastern United States, really don't have any conception of the wide open spaces of the West and what that really means.
Mm-hmm. Well, is it possible for people who, because I've lived out there, not where you are obviously, but I've lived in in San Francisco and so on. And I'm sorry for that, but there is when you cross the Mississippi, there is a change in culture and mentality and
population density, yeah.
Yeah, and population density. And so I'm wondering if people, say, east of the Mississippi, are capable of making that transition, or are there...
Well, some of them are my neighbors right now. And
okay.
So, no, people don't seem to have a problem at all. It's more of a matter of mindset. Once you adopt a self-sufficient lifestyle, the mindset comes with it. And once you start, growing your own garden and cutting your own firewood and stacking your own hay and, all the other things you need to do to be self-sufficient, it kind of, nothing succeeds like success. And if you're successful at handling all those things, you pretty well fall into that whole milieu. That whole mentality becomes pervasive. And you don't think like someone who is a dependent city person anymore. You just pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Hear, hear. Let's hear it for bootstraps. Listen, I gotta roll, Jim. But thanks again for taking time out. Always educational having you on the show. Appreciate the books, Survivors, Patriots, and now Founders. Nice little trilogy for just in time for Christmas, and a new one is on the way. And hopefully we'll have a chance to chat again in a little bit and pick on a few other subjects.
That sounds great, Brian. Thank you so much, and God bless your listeners.
Thank you very much, sir. James Wesley Rawles of SurvivalBlog.com and author of the latest Founders.